I, 32 male, let friends, 28 male and 26 female, of my wife's, 29 female, move in with us when they lost their house. Oh boy, did I make a terrible mistake. Hi Reddit. I'll warn you now that I'm pissed beyond belief right now, but I'm going to try to stay as calm as possible and be as rational as I can. Wall of text today. Some small background information. My wife, T, and I have been married for 6 years. Her friend, R, has been a presence in her life since she was a child. R and her husband, W, have been married for 3 years. My wife and I bought a house 4 years ago. It's 3 bedrooms even though there are just 2 of us because we were planning on starting a family. R and W had been in financial trouble for years and eventually lost their house 2 years ago. They lived nearby, and my wife offered them to stay in our house. I was upset that she did this without consulting me. My wife makes significantly more money than I do and pays most of the bills, but I thought that a choice like that should be made with the consent of both parties. I communicated this to her and she apologized profusely. By that time, however, the plans were set for them to move in. So they did. We gave them a strict set of limits and boundaries as well as a set end date to move out, and made sure that they helped around the house. They've actually been very good house guests, never dirtying the place or acting like it was their own. We helped them search for a house and saw that all plans fell through. As a result, we extended the move-out date several times. They still haven't found a house. Now for the problems. R has always been very flirtatious with me, ever since I met her many years ago. My wife says she trusts R, that R is just doing it in good fun and she doesn't have an issue with it at all. I just normally would shrug it off. W didn't seem to mind either, so I assumed that that's just how R is. I got used to it and didn't really respond to it, so I didn't even think it would be an issue when they moved in. Boy, was I wrong. My wife works very long hours in her job, and I'm home a lot more than she is, well, used to be. It'll come up later. R does not work, W does. R began hanging out with me a lot while my wife was gone, which I didn't mind too much. It was nice to have company. I began to sense red flags when R began talking a lot about how unhappy she was with her husband. She'd always ask me how I could be happy being tied down to someone. I used to respond that I was actually quite happy with my wife, and didn't see myself as tied down at all, but rather we were together willingly and not forced. When she began complaining about it too much, I politely requested that she go see a marriage counselor if they were having so many problems, and I was not the person to ask. The 4 of us, my wife and I and R and W, would go out on weekends to drink and relax every once in a while when my wife wasn't working. R started asking me to go out with her on her own, without her husband or my wife. I declined, saying I didn't go to bars without my wife unless it was with the guys. She pressured hard until she gave up. Out of the blue about 8 months ago, R asked for sex-related advice with her husband. My wife and I have a very active sex life, and she claimed that she and W only had vanilla sex and they wanted to spice it up. The 2 of us were alone at the house at this point. I gave her a few suggestions. We had a good conversation about it for a while. However, she started pressing more, asking what it felt like to do other positions or to try bondage. I told her to ask my wife because I couldn't give a female perspective. After that, she seemed to think it was appropriate to talk to me about sex matters whenever the 2 of us were alone. I told her that I was not interested in those conversations, and again suggested that she see a marriage counselor if her intimacy with her husband was not good enough. She got mad at me and told me to stop telling her to see a marriage counselor because she didn't want their relationship to last. I told her that in that case, she either needs to stop complaining to me about it or tell W about her intentions. I didn't hear about it after that. Things were normal for a while. About 6 months ago, I got a promotion at my job and started working more hours. Things were really good after that. About a month ago, R pulled me aside after dinner telling me how much she missed having me around and that she was so lonely without me. I suggested that she get a job or take up a hobby, but she got upset, saying that she was happy not working, she just didn't want to be lonely. I told her to get on Reddit, don't know if she has an account, hence the throwaway, if she wasn't going to be productive. I may have been cruel, but I honestly didn't know what to tell her. Fast forward to a week ago. The four of us go out to a restaurant, and R sits next to me where my wife usually sits. This seems like something inconsequential, but I sit next to my wife every single day when we eat dinner, and I didn't appreciate her intruding. I politely asked her to move. She moved. When we get back, I'm about to head to bed with my wife, and R takes me out of the room saying she needs to talk. She breaks down, saying that she loves me and she can't stand to see me sitting next to my wife or sleeping next to my wife anymore. She says she's unhappy and she can't handle not being with me, that the last few months where I've been gone have been hell to her, and that she's been consistently miserable. I calm her down, listen to her, and when she's done, I tell her the truth. I'm extremely happy with my wife, and even if I wasn't, I've made a commitment to her. I'm flattered that she loves me, but I cannot and will not return her feelings, and I won't tolerate her trying to break up the relationship between me and my wife. I left the room at the point, locking myself in the room with my wife. The two of us had a long talk about it and both agreed that the two of them needed to move out, quickly. The next day, Tia and I talked to the two of them about the fact that they are going to need to leave. The next end date, which is December 31st, would be the final one, and there would be no extensions. They didn't protest at all, just seemed appreciative that we'd held them for so long and said they'd find their own place. I had today off. My wife didn't. I have been keeping myself distanced from her since she professed her love for me, normally staying locked in my office while I'm alone with her, or leaving the house to do some chores or hang out with the guys. Today I had work to do, so I locked myself in my office. R starts banging on the door demanding to be let in. I open the door, ask her to please stop as I'm busy, but she says she needs to talk to me. Perhaps I was cruel, but I told her that she needed to accept that I was happy with my wife and she needed to leave me alone. She plays the whole act of she's going to kill herself if I don't stop avoiding her or giving her attention. I told her that if she says she is going to kill herself, that I need to call the police to put her on a psychiatric hold. To put bluntly what happened next, she tried to sexually assault me. I ended up pushing her to the ground and told her that if she ever laid a hand on me again, I was going to call the police. She tried saying she'd accuse me of sexual assault, but my office is under constant surveillance and I'd have evidence that it was her doing. She accused me of spying, but I told her to get the hell away from me and locked myself in the office again. And now, I'm here, writing this. I know we gave them until the 31st of December, but I honestly don't think I can do it. I feel disgusted that this woman is in my house and I want her out now. I am dreading telling my wife when she gets home from work, and I know she'll feel the same way. Would it be wrong of me to give them until the end of this month? What can I do? What can I say to W? How can I get this woman to leave me alone until they leave? TL.DR. My wife and I let her friend and her husband move in over 2 years ago. The friend has been extremely flirtatious, and eventually confessed her love for me. As a result, my wife and I told them they had to move out by the end of the year. She just tried to sexually assault me. Read above for more detail. Am I wrong to want them to move out earlier? What do I do? Call your wife now. Don't wait until she gets home, this needs to be done ASAP. This woman already threatened to accuse you of sexually assaulting her, so I wouldn't be surprised if she decided to call your wife up and tell her a skewed story. Tell her exactly what happened and tell her you want the woman out of your house by the end of the day. Not a week. Not by the 31st, the end of the day. It's bad enough that she's been so disrespectful to you and your wife in your home, but she has now sexually assaulted you. If the tables were turned and you were a woman sexually assaulted by a man, would you tell that woman to allow that man to stay in her house another day? Oh, and when asked, I would definitely tell the husband what his wife has been pulling while he's away. You should have told him before it progressed this far. Me, 31 male, and my wife's, 30 female, friend, 30 female, might be flirting with me. Wife and I have been together 5 years, married for 2. No kids. My wife has a friend, Jane, who was/is her best friend since college. Jane is married to John, who also went to college with them. I did not go to college with them and met my wife several years after graduation. Jane and John have recently moved to our town and we've been spending a lot of time with them. It's been fun. I like them both and it's nice to have another childless couple to spend time with. Prior to a few months ago, Jane and John lived overseas, so I didn't know them very well. Ever since they moved back, Jane seems to be flirty with me. I can't tell if she's just a flirty person or if there's something else going on since I have no history with her. It started out just a little too friendly and has been slowly ramping up. For the past week or so she's been texting me randomly throughout the day. Nothing inappropriate or sexual, but still those little "how you doing?" type things that seem outside the scope of our friendship. This past weekend, we all went to a barbecue and she insisted on coming with me on a beer run to the store. Nothing untoward happened, but still, why would she want to come? There have been many little things like that, things that are not romantic or sexual at all, but still a little too friendly for me to not notice them. The part I haven't mentioned is that Jane slept with my wife's college boyfriend their senior year. She cheated on John when she did this. It caused a huge rift in Jane and my wife's friendship and they didn't speak for about 5 years. I met my wife during that time. They only reconnected a couple years ago when Jane's mom died and they resumed their close friendship. Jane and John, obviously, worked through the cheating and stayed together since they got married. If my wife even got a whiff that Jane was flirting with me, then their friendship would blow up again. At the same time, I don't want to cause another rift if the behavior is innocent, since my wife is so happy to have her best friend living nearby. I'm primarily interested in covering myself with my wife. If I say something, I risk a blow up over potentially nothing. If I say nothing, and the behavior escalates, then it could be me if my wife finds out and the flirting has been going on for a while. Needless to say, nothing will ever actually happen between Jane and me. TLDR. Wife's friend might be flirting with me. I can't tell. Friend slept with wife's college boyfriend years ago, so the subject is very, very touchy. My friend thought it would be okay to hit on my wife. She was drinking and up late. It was her day to sleep in and we'd actually managed to get both kids into bed. I passed out and she stayed up, goofing off on Omegle. That sort of thing really doesn't bother me at all. It's an ego boost for her. We have an understanding that way. Truly not an issue for either of us. She starts chatting with a guy I've been hanging out with for maybe 2 months. His wife and my wife are basically best friends. I really like this dude. Common interests, kids the same age, everyone gets along. Ideal situation. He's working the night shift, she's drunk, and they start chatting. The conversation was completely normal. She talked about how she grew up, he talked about work. Innocent stuff. Then he starts throwing in these little flirty statements. Send nudes followed by just kidding. We'd make a great couple. Stuff that crosses the line. She never once invited or encouraged his behavior. She said a few times, "Dude, don't make this weird." He persisted. The night ends and my wife comes to bed. The next morning she tells me he'd been flirty with her. I asked how. She showed me the chat logs. I could see how he'd towed the line at first, then crossed it. His wife messages mine. "Were you two chatting last night?" "Yes." "Is that so?" See, the thing is, he lied about it. So not only did this guy try to hit on my wife, he flat out denied it the next day and then deleted the entire conversation. My wife offered the logs to his wife. She said no at first, but once she saw he deleted them, she asked for them. End result was his wife freaking out at mine, then apologizing a few hours later. We blocked and deleted all of their contacts. What stings me the most is that nobody but my wife really seemed to consider how this might have hurt me. A guy I consider to be a close friend pulls this stuff on me and it just gets passed right over. I've lost other friends to the same situation. I mean, I get it. My wife is extremely good looking, friendly, intelligent, kind, and a lot of fun to hang out with. I get why guys would want to be around her. But this is the third guy that has completely tossed a friendship away in the attempt, and failure, to get something started. I try to trust people. I try to like them. It seems like they keep hurting me. What's the choice? Continue to trust and leave myself open to this sort of thing, or trust no one and be alone? I'm very angry and very hurt right now. If you've gotten this far, thanks for reading.